Hey guys, I am so excited you're here with me today because I am going to share with you my story of why I started coaching. I'm really excited to share with you. I'm going to be as open and vulnerable as possible because I want to pour my heart out with you about how much this opportunity has changed my life on a mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical level. So, before I dive into my story, just to give you a little bit of background about myself. I'm 29 years old. I grew up in the country, just in a little teeny tiny hamlet, it's probably not even on the map, just outside of Edmonton, Alberta, and that's in Canada. If you're listening and you're from the States or the UK, I am a Canadian girl. So growing up, I was really active and involved in sports. I actually went really far with soccer. I ended up playing at the provincial and national level, and that brought a whole bunch of different opportunities for me when I was looking at post-secondary options to get my teaching degree. Unfortunately, when the push came to shove, I was not able to go down to the States due to an injury. So I ended up staying here at home and going to the U of A, the University of Alberta, and I got my teaching degree. So I majored in mathematics and minored in physical education. So my picture for my life, I kind of figured that I would go through university, I would get my degree, get a full-time teaching job, and get married, and my life would be grand. So I'm going to tell you that none of that has happened in my life. So while I was going to school, in my it was my third or fourth year, I can't quite remember, I met somebody and I got married. So I was married at 22, so I was married pretty young. And at that time, I was also diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. So for those of you who don't know what that is, you're like thinking like, okay, what is that? It's an inflammatory bowel disease of the large intestine. So basically, your large intestine is full of ulcers and inflammation, and it makes everyday life extremely, extremely challenging, especially when you can't find any sort of relief through medicine. So when I was first diagnosed with that hit me pretty hard because I thought, like, why me? I'm this healthy person. This isn't supposed to happen. I lived in denial for a couple years. I did what doctors told me to do. I went on different medications and with no relief. So when it was really bad, I would break out with rheumatoid arthritis to the point where I couldn't even walk. And when you can't walk and you have to go to the bathroom 30 times plus a day because you're bleeding from your large intestine, it makes life really challenging. And food-wise, it was really hard to even eat food without wanting to die because it was just that internal struggle that I constantly had, finding no relief in medication. So I guess you could say at that time I hit a pretty low spot in my life. I lost myself in my illness. I let my illness control my life. I was married to a man who was an alcoholic, abusive, emotionally, physically. And so all of that negativity and that chronic stress just built on me for years because I was determined to change him. I was determined to make everything work out. I was determined that I was going to go get in remission and find relief through food, through some kind of study, through some kind of medication. I was determined that I had full control of all these outcomes. And it got to the point in my life, so this was before I started coaching, that I hit complete rock bottom. So one day I was sitting in my living room and I had been in quite a bit of pain for like 24 hours. I just was in extreme like back pain and I didn't really know what was going on, but I was very stubborn. about not going to the hospital unless I absolutely had to. So at that point, I probably did, but I was like, no, it'll pass. I'm just going to wait it out. So eventually I got so tired that I finally went and had a nap. And about half an hour later, I woke up and my life changed. I woke up to my leg basically being triple the size of my other leg. So it had increased in size that much. And I just remember waking up, getting up and not being able to move my leg, and the amount of pain that started to go through my leg. So at that point, I knew something was like wrong, like really, really wrong. So because I couldn't even walk or move it, I had to hobble, and it was really painful. So, and it started to turn blue. So the thoughts that were going through my head is that I think, I have to stay calm, because if I panic, you jump to all those conclusions in your head, like I'm going to lose my leg, like I don't know what's going on. So I went to the hospital, and they immediately took me in and ran a whole bunch of tests. And that was probably the most scariest part of my life. I just remember lying in this room, not knowing what was going on. After going through a whole bunch of tests, I was jacked up on morphine and whatever else they gave me for the pain. And I had a team of inflammatory bowel doctors and a team of, I guess, the general doctors of the hospital. I'm not too sure. There was about 10 of them that came into my room. And the one doctor came up to me, and he walked up to me and he said, "We don't know how you're alive." And I just started bawling my eyes out. He's like, "There's no medical explanation as to why you're here right now." He says, "You shouldn't be here right now, because everything on your chart shows us that it's just not possible to be alive right now." And so I just broke down instantly, because I knew it was something serious. I just didn't know what it was. And so what happened was my leg basically clotted, and I got a deep vein thrombosis, is what it's called. And the clot broke off into my deep vein, and that's not too life-threatening, but the life-threatening part of it was when it broke off into my leg and it traveled into my right lung. And most people don't survive one blood clot in their lung. It's called a pulmonary embolism. And I had 2 clots. So they were like, "Whoa, we don't even know how you're here right now." And I was like, "Whoa, I don't even know either." But it was like a huge wake-up call for me that things were spiraling out of control out of my life, that I had to start making different choices to produce different changes in my life that were going to serve me. So I stayed in the hospital for just over a week recovering, and dealing with my ulcerative colitis on top of that. So those 2 things did not go hand in hand well together, because I couldn't walk, and my colitis was obviously flaring, because my inflammation marks were through the roof, normal, on a blood test. If you go, it's at a 8 is normal. Mine were in the 300s. So my inflammation throughout my whole body was just insane. So when I got home from the hospital, I couldn't walk yet. I was in a wheelchair. And I just remember thinking that I need to do something different. Number one, my marriage was failing. And no matter what I did, I couldn't change that person. I couldn't change the habits. I couldn't change all of that. So I needed to take a step back, and I needed to reevaluate my own life. And I had to make choices for myself to figure out what I was going to do. So it was kind of funny, because I started to work out again, and I started doing a workout program called the Brazilian Butt Workout. So it's like an ancient Beachbody program, totally solid. And I started working out again, and honestly, I started off with the warm up, and I was done. And every day I would do that and do that and do that, to get more mobility in my leg, to get myself breathing more normally, because I always was out of breath, obviously recovering from 2 blood clots in my lung. And each day I felt myself I was getting myself back, and I was like, whoa, I can do this. I can do this. And I remember I would gauge my progress on how well I could walk up the stairs, because in my old house, there was a staircase that kind of circled down. And when I tried to walk up the stairs, I just couldn't. I like literally crawled because I was so out of breath. So I would gauge at how well I could walk, number one, and number two, how well I could breathe going up the stairs. And I noticed huge improvements over time. And it was so hard, but it was so like empowering. So I knew I was doing something right for myself in my life. I just, and I just kept going with it. And one day my friend, she came over and she's like, Brittany, I think you should start coaching. And I was like, what do you mean start coaching? And she's like, you're already doing these programs and you're living this lifestyle. Look at you. Look at how many people you could inspire by sharing your story with people. Like, you're already doing it. And I was like, I just felt like it was the universe telling me and nudging me that I had to do this. And don't get me wrong, I was like, I need to do this. I have no idea what I'm doing though. But I just knew that this was like a sign that I had to keep following. I didn't know the how part. I just knew what felt right for me in my life. So I started this journey of coaching, and because I knew I had to make a change, and I knew this was like the next step for me to keep making changes, because I couldn't keep living the way I was living. I was starting to gain myself back, my sense of self-worth, my confidence, and all of those things that I felt were taken from me over the years. I woke up to, I became conscious of my life, and I took that back through fitness and started taking care of my health better. As much as I was trying, I had to be in a completely different environment for my health to get better. And fitness was definitely something that keeps me alive, and it keeps me going, and it builds, those challenges build confidence. So that is why I started coaching, is because I just knew at the time I needed to improve my health, and I needed to make a positive, lifestyle lasting change that was going to serve me. And once I started to coach, other things in my life started to open up, and positive things. My health started to improve. I have my bumps with my health all the time, but overall, it has started to improve drastically. I gained the strength to get out of a really toxic marriage. And I don't want to cry because, it's been over a year since I've been gone. But I left with nothing. And I'm building my life from scratch. And I'm really proud of myself for that. But I knew I wouldn't have been able to make that shift in my life if it wasn't for coaching. I wouldn't have had myself back. I wouldn't have had this strength and confidence to make that really, really tough decision in my life. And it's been one of the most challenging years of my life, but the biggest growth. And I feel like every day is just bringing me closer to who I want to be as a person and what I want to serve in this world. And I'm just forever grateful that every day I have this opportunity now to be the best version of me, to share my passion with people about health, about fitness, how it radiates into so many other areas of your life, that I'm just so passionate about it because of the impact that it's done for my life. And I want to pay it forward to as many people as I can possible. So that's my story. Hopefully I didn't go on too long of a rant. Thank you so much for listening. Know that your story can inspire so many people. You don't know until you try. And that's one thing I've learned in coaching. You just don't know until you take that first step how powerful your story really can be. So again, thanks for listening, guys.